Welcome to the Web Hosting Cat Podcast, brought to you by webhostingcat.com. Here's your host, Michael James.
Welcome to the program. On this edition of the podcast, we're going to be talking all about managed WordPress hosting with my special guest, David Vogelpohl, VP of Web Strategy at WP Engine. If you're considering going with a managed WordPress hosting plan, you'll want to listen carefully to the interview as we discuss topics such as what benefits you receive with a managed hosting plan, is a managed WordPress plan worth the cost? We'll talk about some of the premium features that WP Engine provides, and a lot more. All right, when it comes to managed WordPress web hosting, if you talk to people in the WordPress community, there's one name that comes up a lot, and that's WP Engine. I use WP Engine myself. And I'm very pleased to have as my guest today the VP of Web Strategy, David Vogelpohl. David, thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Thanks, Michael. I'm glad to be here.
Let's start out with, for newbies or people that are undecided, what are some of the major benefits of having a managed WordPress hosting plan?
Yeah, so the difference between a managed WordPress hosting provider and a normal hosting provider is that we only host WordPress. So what that means is that we can configure our systems, our traffic routing systems, our caching, the way we do our CDN, our content distribution network, around WordPress specifically. So WordPress handles files and bits of the website in very specific ways, and so we can optimize our system to serve those ways as efficiently as possible. A general host has to accommodate for all kinds of different sites, so they can't be as precise in the way that they route traffic. So in that case, that basically gives us an advantage to be able to serve the website faster because we can customize it for WordPress. Secondary advantage, of course, is that our support staff only supports WordPress sites, so they're very, very knowledgeable when it comes to WordPress. They first off have to go through 7 weeks of training before they can even answer one ticket. And then again, they're only answering WordPress tickets. They're also thought leaders. They speak at WordCamps and things like that. So in addition to being faster, we also have a support staff that is exclusively dedicated to supporting WordPress websites.
And I really like a couple of features that I really like are the snapshot backup capability along with the automatic updates every night. And also the staging for development. I think that's
the combination between those two things is super powerful. What I see a lot with people that manage WordPress sites is this paralysis about updating plugins, for example. You don't want to update a plugin because it's going to break your site. Well, guess what? A lot of plugin updates are related to security updates, and you need to update them, or you could introduce vulnerabilities into your site. So what I like to do with WP Engine is use our one-click staging feature inside of WordPress. So you can instantly create a copy of your site. You can go update the plugin, install a new plugin, make changes, and then with one click, push those changes live on your site. And if you mess them up, to your point, using our automated backups, you can still roll back to the version you had before. So you don't have to think about the backups. They run automatically. And then, of course, you can also trigger them on demand. So if you're about to push a change live, I like to make a quick backup. Matter of fact, we have a little pop-up that kind of asks you, are you sure you don't want to make a backup before you make a change? And then if I do mess it up, I can always roll it back to the previous version.
Right, awesome. Now, you mentioned plugins. I know there are a few plugins that are the WP Engine prohibits. I think like database-intensive plugins and things like that. Are there alternatives you can use for things like related post plugins and things like that?
Yeah, so we ban plugins really for mainly two reasons. One would be performance issues, and the other would be security. You got to keep in mind, when we ban a plugin, there's a very, very, very good reason. Personally, I'm not aware of an alternate plugin to related posts, but there certainly are those out there. If you are a customer of WP Engine, you can reach out to our support group. They'll have those in their database. We have a very extensive, very curated database of responses and issues, and those details will be in there. I'm just not personally aware of it offhand. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
David, what do you say to people that are maybe a little bit hesitant because WP Engine is a little more expensive than some other hosting plans? Somebody might think, oh, hey, I can get this $5 a month hosting plan, and they offer WordPress too. What do you say to these people?
Yeah, I think it just really depends on your site. So if you're serious about your business, the advantages that WP Engine offers can be really valuable for you. So yeah, granted, you can pay $5 a month and not really spend a lot on hosting, and that might be fine if it's an experimental site and you don't really care that much about it. But what the advantages that WP Engine delivers, one is certainly speed and reliability. and that translates into higher conversion rates. So for most people, the price difference between $5 or $10 a month hosting and $29 a month at WP Engine can usually be made up just from the increased conversion rates. Now, if that's not enough, the other side to that can help make up that cost difference is our DIY tools. The ability to create that staging copy of your site. With most hosts, you have to pay a developer to do that. And so just doing that a couple of times a year will negate the cost of WP Engine. In other words, you would pay the developer more to do those things than you would if you used WP Engine and could do them on your own. So those are the main differences. If you have multiple sites, our cost is actually not that different than some of the cheaper hosts. For example, we have a 10-website plan that only costs $9 a site, and then some of our bigger plans go down to even $3 and $6 per website. So if you have a large number of sites, the pricing is actually pretty comparable to some of those other hosts. For a single site, of course, it can be a little bit more, but those DIY tools, the increased speed and reliability, in other words, the total cost of ownership is lower on WP Engine, even though you may pay the other host less per month. The amount of time and energy and third-party resources you have to use to keep your site up to date and properly managed is oftentimes higher, even though you're paying less with another provider.
Gotcha. A couple of the new features that WP Engine released recently was the transferable installs and billing transfer. Can you talk about a little bit how these two can benefit WordPress developers and consultants?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that feature. I call it our Swiss Army knife feature. And the reason why is there's so many use cases where it can be really, really powerful. So we'll talk about it maybe through the context of a developer for a minute, someone who builds websites for other people. So what you can do with the transferable install, the way that they work is it's like a WordPress install on our account. It's like any other install. The big difference, though, is that it doesn't count against the number of installs on your plan. So if you have a personal account with one install, you can use essentially unlimited transferable installs. So if you're a developer, or if you're not, you're just a regular webmaster, you can use the transferable installs to stage new work. So if you're building a new website, you don't have to worry about that version of WordPress or that install counting against the installs in your plan. So there's a billing advantage. Now, when it's time to move the site to the client's host, in other words, you're a developer and you've built a site for someone and you're going to launch it, you're going to give it to them so they pay for the hosting. In the back end of our portal, all you have to do is put in their email address, click a button, and they can accept the install into their account. So you don't have to worry about using Git or any other technical tools to move the site over. You can do it right there in the interface. And then, if they're not a WP Engine customer and they sign up, then you earn a commission for that referral. We pay a minimum of $200 per referral, or 100% of the first month's payment, whichever is greater. And so even on our enterprise accounts, we have affiliates that earn $3,200 payments, $7,200, $10,000+ payments by referring larger customers. So if you're a developer, it's a great way to stage your work and to earn some revenue by distributing it. And there's all kinds of other use cases. Just think of any other use case where someone's building a site and they need to maybe transfer it to someone else. We have plugin developers, theme developers that use these features to distribute essentially sites in a box to their clients. So that's why I call it the Swiss Army knife of features, because there's so many use cases that transferable installs help solve.
We're talking with David Vogelpohl, VP of Web Strategy at WP Engine. David, one of the projects that the WP Engine Labs team has worked on is the WP Engine search feature. Can you talk a little bit about that? That, to me, is really exciting.
Yeah, so one of the issues with WordPress is some of the default search features aren't quite as robust as maybe we'd like them to be.
Right.
So WP Engine has worked with a third-party agency to help create a tool that makes the WordPress search experience more effective. It runs faster, there's more features and things like that. This is something our labs team is working on. I do not have a release date on the full feature, but it is something that we are working on to help improve WordPress. Some of our enterprise clients have been able to leverage those features. We actually leverage it on the WP Engine site, but we haven't done a full release on it yet, but that is coming.
Okay, great. David, I know you've done a lot of presentations on WordPress optimization, and I know with a WP Engine hosting plan, a lot of optimization is already built in. Are there any additional steps that a WP Engine customer could take to optimize their site even more?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what you're doing, right? The world of plugins is very vast. Obviously, some of my favorite plugins are things like Yoast to help improve SEO. From a site management perspective, I like the Manage WP service, which helps you manage lots of WordPress sites in one go. We do have some of the features that Manage WP has as part of our platform, but they're definitely a more robust kind of website management platform in that sense. Being able to kind of like mass update plugins across multiple sites, we don't do that, for example. So that's another tool I like to augment on. Sometimes it's good to maybe use a service like WordPress to have another kind of backup of your site. Now, we do offsite backups, so you have that benefits that you would get through WordPress, but having that kind of secondary backup isn't a terrible thing to add to your site. And then again, you can have advanced services through Cloudflare, which is like a firewall for your website. Again, a lot of that is bundled in with our services, but these are some add-ons that I'll do to the site.
A few months ago, I was at a presentation that Jason Cosper, the developer advocate for WP Engine, gave on PHP 7 and HHVM. And I don't want to get too deep into it, but for some of our techies out there, I just want to know, what are your thoughts on the future of PHP 7 versus the Facebook HHVM technology?
So I've been kind of involved in that testing from the outside level, not directly within the company. So my information is going to be somewhat limited. But what we've seen generally is there's different use cases. Now, PHP 7 is really super solid. It really speeds up WordPress. The challenge, of course, with PHP 7 is that your plugins are not written in PHP 7. Therefore, to upgrade your site to PHP 7, it can be a lot of work. HHVM doesn't have those issues, but HHVM has other issues with the way that it renders the pages, and there's kind of failover solutions within it, so that way when some things don't quite work right. So PHP 7, in a sense, is maybe a little better, but again, I think it depends on your site, the amount of work and time you have to convert it to PHP 7, and of course your specific use case. So for example, some sites that aren't really optimized for caching may or may not be the best fit for HHVM. So I'm not our largest subject matter expert on that in the company, but based on what I've seen from our tests and the feedback I've gotten from our product team, that would be my kind of rundown of how that.
And is PHP 7 support, is that coming?
Yeah, no, it's something we're actively working on. We're not certainly just going to release it to release it. We're spending a lot of time. And like I said, again, because of kind of the challenges of getting all the stuff in your site to upgrade to PHP 7, I don't think there's going to be like this big land rush. It is definitely faster. PHP 7 will definitely increase the speed of your site. But again, there's going to be some work behind that to get it in that position. So look for that in the future. Again, there's not going to be like this big land rush like there was with SSL, for example, when everybody, Google came out and said SSL was going to be beneficial for SEO, and like overnight, like people kind of started rushing to add it to their sites. PHP 7 is not going to be like that, but I do believe it will be the future of WordPress, along, of course, with JavaScript, which was the other big announcement during WordCamp US, is a kind of migration there. So what is the connection between the kind of JavaScript future of WordPress and the PHP 7 future? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see, but those are my thoughts on that.
Okay, great. We've been talking with David Vogelpohl, the VP of Web Strategy at WP Engine. David, before I let you go, what future offerings are coming from WP Engine?
Oh, we have all kinds of cool stuff. We have some very interesting projects going on right now around website analytics. So website analytics in most platforms use cookies and JavaScript to track individual users and the actions that they take on your site. Well, WP Engine has, of course, server-level data, which gives us much more accurate picture of that. So what we're looking to do is to couple in the web analytics with the web performance analytics. In other words, in an effort to give our customers much more information on what's going on their site, not just from like a business perspective, but also a site management perspective. What plugins are slowing my site down? Where are my performance issues coming from? Giving webmasters, and not just like sophisticated webmasters, high-end developers, but actually lower-end webmasters, the tools that they know that they can use to say things like, oh, that's the plugin that's slowing my site down, or this is the element that's causing the issues. So that's a really neat feature that we have coming down the pipe that I'm really excited about. And there's tons and tons and tons of other features. More geographic redundancy, both from the website level and your network of website level, but tons of features. We're actually going to be releasing a new labs website that details some of the things we're working on in the future. But the analytics component, I think, is probably one of the more exciting things that I've been involved with.
Cool. Well, we'll be looking for that, and I certainly encourage any WordPress site owners or potential WordPress site owners, you really should check out WP Engine and see what their managed WordPress hosting can do for you. David, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate the time, and hope to see you again soon.
Thanks, Michael. I enjoyed it.
All right, that's David Vogelpohl, everyone.
And a big shout out once again to David Vogelpohl for being our guest.
That's going to do it for this edition of the podcast. For more information on WordPress hosting and WP Engine, I invite you to visit our website at webhostingcat.com. And until next time, this is Michael James wishing you all the best with your website endeavors. Thanks for listening and take care.
You've been listening to the Web Hosting Cat Podcast, sponsored by webhostingcat.com. The preceding program is copyrighted 2016 by Tux Cat Media.